Well, welcome to IsraelVision.tv. We are conducting a series of conversations with a specific goal of trying to understand what Islam is about. And with me is Avi Lipkin. And we've just gone through a series of what you coined the 5 deceptions of Islam. Very, very interesting and shocking in very many instances to many people who don't know this information before. They know it now. And they need, well, I think our challenge is to ask them to please prove you wrong. Mm. That's it. Mm. Please prove us wrong with what you have to say, because I don't hear hate in your coming out of your mouth.
Right.
Now, with that said, I would like to talk about a concept that is very disturbing and nobody really talks about except for extreme right in Europe and in the States. And I don't even say it's extreme anymore. It's just a reaction to an action.
To an extreme action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I want to talk about now is what many people have coined Eurabia.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you remember, we spoke in the previous segment about the Christians of Europe slaughtering the Christians of Europe.
Right.
For almost 2,000 years.
For sure.
You had all these wars.
They weren't even Christians. They started out as pagans, and then they're Christians.
But it's nation against
Catholics,
nation, tribe against tribe, and then Protestants against Catholics.
Protestants,
and Catholics
Lutherans.
against Catholics and Protestants against Protestants. Now, what happened in World War II was that at the end of World War II, the Christians woke up and said, this is crazy. Why are white Christian Europeans slaughtering each other? So the brilliant idea came up of what was eventually first called Benelux, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg. Then it became the common market, and then it became the European Union. And the European Union has 3 primary ideologies. Ideology number 1, stop the killing.
This is great.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Praise God. That no European Christian nation, white nation, should go against any other fellow European white Christian nation. And it's one of the reasons why Europe has developed as it has. It's almost like a United States. You have 50 states in the United States of America. You have a lot of these countries in Europe that they see themselves more and more and more as Europeans and not as specifically from a certain country.
I'm proud of it.
And yes, and by the way, French and Germans have become very close.
Very close.
After centuries of hating each other and killing each other. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is that Europe must become a welfare state. In other words, people retire, they have 5-star hotel status as old people. And the third thing is that you cannot have more, or it's not politically correct to have more than 1 child per family. So
that makes no sense. But okay.
Of course, it doesn't make any sense. So what happens basically is that you have a welfare system that is very costly.
And it's going to die.
And it has to be paid for. And in order to pay for it, if everything falls on the shoulders of the 1 child per family, if at all.
Yeah.
Because
if at all.
Because in America, Canada, Europe, and the Western world, people have become so liberal.
1.35 per child.
They don't want to have children. People don't want to get married. People don't want to have children. So what happens is, how can you pay for the welfare system? You must bring in new blood. Now, the Americans, especially the right-wing Americans, a lot of them say, well, we don't want the Hispanics, we don't want the Mexicans, we don't want this, we don't want that.
They're the lifeblood of the economy.
They're the lifeblood of the economy, and they're Christian. The Mexicans and the Latin Americans, they're Christian.
Devout.
The Europeans do not have that luxury.
No, they don't.
The Europeans are very, very unfortunate because what they have is Muslims. And the Europeans, I always say like this, the Europeans have forgotten their history of Islamic invasions. The Americans never knew the history in the first place. So the Islamic approach is, we didn't succeed in Spain in 7/11. We didn't succeed through the Turkish invasions. We will now succeed through peaceful invasions. And the Europeans, for reasons of comfort and convenience, have brought in millions of Muslims. It is estimated today there are about 50 million Muslims legally
For sure.
living in Europe. The Christian population is 300 million Christians, 50 million Muslims.
Pretty soon.
Wait a second. Now they're talking about Turkey joining the European Union. Turkey would bring in another 70 million, so it's 50 and 70 is 120 million. But don't forget, the Turks, like the Jews, give passports and citizenship to ethnic Turks. The Jews give passports immediately.
Ethnic Jews,
who
yeah.
make Aliyah.
Yeah.
So if you have 200 million Muslim Turkic people in Russia, in the former six republics that broke away from the former Soviet Union, you have now not 70 million, you have prospectively 270 million.
Yeah.
Joining the 50, it's 320 million. Europe overnight becomes a Muslim continent when the Turks, or if the Turks, God forbid, join the European Union. Now there's another thing also, and nobody talks about this. 1973, the Yom Kippur War. The Muslims decided to starve the world
Of oil.
of oil. They made a deal with the European Union. The European Union said, you know, we're so close to the oil, we don't have the oil, we need the oil. We'll make a deal. You sell us the oil, or the Muslims dictated to them. We will bring in Muslim workers, we will give them mosques, we will give them freedom, we'll give them anything they want.
Just give us the oil.
Just give us the oil. So today, the Europeans are over a barrel. On the other hand, I do want to say, like I said before, when you have a violent action, you're going to have a violent reaction. The situation is very, very bad for the Europeans. And I'm very proud to tell you on this show that I am was fortunate, I was chosen of God to be part of the Christian Swiss victory in the November 29th referendum on the minarets.
Avi, this whole politically incorrect, I mean, I was using this phrase all the time, and it's starting to get on my nerves, but that's the truth, I guess. In Switzerland, one of the freest societies on the planet forbade minarets to be built. How did that happen? And what did you have to do with it?
Well, firstly, I have to tell you, I have a long-standing relationship with the Swiss, and particularly with the Christian EDU party, which is a Christian conservative party. So not a big party. And with a group called Pro-Israel. I don't know if you heard of Werner Scherer, but he is the leader of the Pro-Israel department of the EDU party. And I was in Switzerland also in 2003, and I have a whole lot of stories I can tell you about that too. And they came to me in 2008, and they said to me, you know, Avi, we have a problem. You did a great service for Switzerland in 2003. We need you again. And so I went back in June of 2009 for 2 weeks, and in October 2009. November the 29th was the vote. It was a public referendum on whether or not to allow the Muslims to build their minarets. Now, the Muslims do have 400 churches, 400 mosques in Switzerland. There is freedom of religion. You know, Jews and Christians go off quietly to pray, and they go home quietly from their prayers. Islam has developed a system by which they have to have minarets with loudspeakers, starting at 4:30 in the morning and broadcasting 5 times a day, Allahu Akbar, which what I said in the previous segment, Allah is the devil. So basically, if you allow a minaret, you're allowing them to broadcast that the devil is greater than God. Allahu Akbar, 4:30 in the morning and then all the way into the evening. So firstly, this is noise pollution. And, you know, Switzerland...
Just pure and simple noise pollution.
Yeah. By the way, we
hear it rolling over the hills every day.
We have it in Jerusalem.
Of course.
There was a story in the press here in Israel about Armon Netziv, which is a Jewish neighborhood next to Jebel Mukaber. And what did they do? The mosque is on the dividing line, the road between the Jewish and the Arab neighborhood.
They turned the speakers towards...
They turned the speakers towards Israel.
Not towards themselves, towards Israel.
Yeah, and what happened was that the noise became so unbearable that the Jewish people in Armon Netziv called in the police to see what was going on. And that entire street, every house on the street had a loudspeaker facing the Jews. So if you live across the street, you're not going to sleep when they go with the high decibels. You know, Allahu Akbar, 4:30 in the morning, that's it. You're not going to sleep anymore. And so the police basically took down all of the broadcasters except for the one in the mosque. But the point I'm saying is this is part of the psychological warfare of Islam to conquer new territory. They're in Switzerland also. They have their mosques, they pray, but they don't want to go quietly. They want to go with noise to impose their domination over the Jews and the Christians. This was my message in 23 German-speaking cities in Switzerland. I also appeared on Swiss TV. I don't know if it's still there or if they took it down, www.sf.tv. I was there 7 minutes and my message in Switzerland. By the way, it's very, very funny. Three Muslims came to Wichtrach, the first place where I spoke, church of 550 people. That night, they went to the police to demand my extradition from Switzerland. The next morning was in all the newspapers in Switzerland. You know, the Muslims, I owe them a lot. They made me very famous in Switzerland. 2 nights later, in Burgdorf, 4 Swiss gendarmes came, Swiss policemen. I saw them in uniform. They were in the back. I was waiting to be arrested and deported. At the end of the message, they came up to me and they shook my hand and said, Avi, you have a very important message for Switzerland.
Really?
Anyway, the Swiss TV savaged me. And as a result, many Jews and many Christians got so angry with the left-leaning Swiss TV that on November 29th, the vote was 57 to 43% against the minarets. It took the Swiss government completely by surprise. So I'm very proud to announce that I was chosen by God. I was given the honor by God to be part of the Christian victory in saving Switzerland from the Muslim minarets. Geert Wilders today in Austria is part of the government. In other words, the extreme right, quote unquote, which I call the rational right, has formed this coalition. You're seeing today, also in France, they banned the burqa.
Now in Holland as well.
There are many countries now that are waking up to the Eurabia threat. And I think I'm a confident person that the Europeans will snap out of it.
Okay. Well, Avi, thank you for your time, and we'll be posting these segments that we've done over the next couple of days, and I really appreciate it. And have a safe trip and a good trip.
Amen.
And come back, and we will talk when you do come back.
Good.
Thank you very much, Avi.
Pleasure.